Subscribe to Bloody Monday and watch chilling horror stories almost every week. Don't forget to press the bell icon.
Brahms the Boy Horror Story. Greta had moved to UK to take a leap in her career. A supremely rich Hillshire family had hired her to take care of their kid, Brahms. When Greta had reached the Hillshire house, she was explained about all the rules. The Hillshire couple had named their son Brahms. They told her that she was supposed to shout his name to wake him up. She was also told to read him stories at the top of her lungs and even play music at the highest volume. She assumed that Brahms must be having a hearing defect, but she was stunned when she saw Brahms for the first time. In reality, Brahms was just a doll. Initially, Greta thought that the Hillshire couple was just joking with her, but she later realized that they were actually pretty serious about it. Greta agreed. The Hillshire family was quite rich, and they were paying her really well for this job. After handing over the responsibilities of Brahms to Greta, the Hillshire couple went out for a few days. Greta still found all of this to be utter nonsense. She wasn't taking good care of the doll. But because of this, weird things started happening with her. For instance, if she didn't serve food to Brahms, something in the kitchen would break. If she covered Brahms' face, she would feel herself suffocated while sleeping. During all this, she met a guy named Malcolm who used to deliver supplies at the house every week. When she spoke to Malcolm about this, Malcolm told him everything about Brahms. It is believed that about 20 years ago, Brahms was Hillshire's only son. A girl named Emily used to come play with him every day, and Brahms used to be very happy around her. One fine day, Emily disappeared. When the police investigated, they found Emily's dead body in a jungle nearby. It looked like someone had smashed her head with a stone. Just after a few days of this incident, a fire started at the Hillshire's house, and their 8-year-old Brahms lost his life in that fire. And since that day, the Hillshire couple believed the doll to be their son and also treated it like him. This made Greta perturbed. She also started noticing that the doll changed position on its own. Because of all what was happening, Greta now started to take good care of that doll. Meanwhile, she developed a soft corner for Malcolm. One night, she invited Malcolm over for dinner. When Malcolm came to the house at night, he heard some strange noise. It seemed as if the noise was coming from the walls. Greta told him that these noises were a norm. But the noises had intensified since Malcolm's presence. Suddenly, from the wall behind Malcolm, a piece of glass broke and a very horrifying being came out of it. The thing looked like a young boy, but he was entirely burnt. His eyes were red as blood. He looked like a devil. He straight away attacked Malcolm. The doll fell from the chair during their fight. While fighting the boy, Malcolm stepped on the doll unknowingly and the doll broke. Malcolm kept fighting that boy and told Greta to run away. The boy said if Greta goes, Malcolm will meet the same fate as Emily did. The boy told that he loved Emily a lot, but one day she didn't come to him and went to play with another boy. That is why he had smashed Emily's face with the big rock and killed her. Since that day, his parents kept him hiding in that wall. He told him that he loved Greta now, and he would kill anything if it comes between him and Greta. Greta stopped after listening to all this. She quietly took the knife, kept on the table, and hid it behind her. She was really scared, but in her loving voice, she asked him to calm down and assured him that she was here only for him. But as per the rules, it was very late now and he would be off to sleep. Malcolm was lying unconscious when Greta took Brahms to put him to sleep. Brahms told him that she would kiss him goodnight to put him to sleep. Greta leaned in, but at that very moment, she stabbed him with the knife. She then took Malcolm and they both escaped that house. But Brahms was still alive. He sat in the house trying to fix the broken doll. The Boy Horror Story Part 2. Mr. and Mrs. Williams shifted to a new house with their son, Jude. 2 months ago, Jude was alone in the house when a robbery took place. The robbers hit Jude on the head until he became unconscious. Since then, Jude got scared and had stopped talking to everyone. Mr. and Mrs. Williams decided to leave that house as Jude would never be able to forget what happened to him in that house. This new house was near the Hillshire property. After shifting to this place, Jude used to play in his garden every day. One day, while playing in the garden, he found a hand stuck out from the grass. When he dug further around that area, he found the same Brahms doll that Greta used to take care of. Jude decided that he'll keep the doll with himself. He started taking care of Brahms the same way. He used to kiss him goodnight every night before sleeping. One day, a couple of guests came over to Mr. and Mrs. Williams' house. Seeing them, something got into Jude. He started screaming at them and demanded to get rid of the guests. He said that Brahms didn't approve of them in his house. It was the first time in 3 months that Jude had spoken a word. It did make Mr. and Mrs. Williams happy, but they were worried at the same time because they weren't expecting him to say something like this. They locked him in his room so that he cannot come out in front of the guests and create a scene. When the guests left in the evening, they opened the room. They reprimanded Jude and told him that what he did today was not justified. Jude told them that Brahms is now a good friend of his, and he does not want anyone else to visit the house. A few days had passed since the incident took place. A guy called Phillips used to come there every week to provide the weekly supplies. When he came the next time, Mr. and Mrs. Williams inquired about this new place. Phillips told them about the history of the Hillshire family. He told them that they had a son named Brahms whose spirit resided within the walls of the Hillshire house. The Hillshire couple had assumed a doll to be their son and also treated it like him. But when this truth came out, the couple committed suicide. Mr. and Mrs. Williams were shocked to hear this, as even their son treated his doll as if it was a real person, and he had also named it Brahms. They showed that doll to Phillips. But as soon as Phillips saw Brahms, the lights of the house started flickering, the table started to shake, and Jude came out to take Brahms with him. Jude said, "You both had promised that no outsider will be coming to our house. Now Brahms is furious and he wants to take revenge." That's when Brahms' mouth opened and a whole lot of weird insects started coming out of his mouth. The insects crawled over Philip's body and started to bite him. Philip's entire skin was gone in seconds. Mr. and Mrs. Williams were left stunned at the sight. They looked at Jude, who was laughing watching Philip's dead body. He told them that Brahms was saying if next time some outsider comes to the house, they'll suffer the same fate as Phillips, and will also keep him as slaves for life. Mr. and Mrs. Williams were petrified hearing this. It seemed as if Jude was under the possession of Brahms' spirit through that doll. Mrs. Williams took the Brahms doll at once and ripped it into pieces by slamming it on the floor. As soon as the doll broke, Jude's eyes turned white and he fell unconscious. Mr. and Mrs. Williams decided that they'll no longer stay at this place. They got in the car and left the house that very moment. They admitted Jude into a hospital. It was his good fortune that Jude came back to normalcy. Mr. and Mrs. Williams bought a new house and started their life afresh. But one day when Miss Williams opened Jude's cupboard, she found a doll sitting there, and there, staring at her, it was the Brahms doll.
Steve, who lived in America, was always fond of visiting the circus to watch the Joker perform its tricks. but a horrific incident happened with him when he was about 13 years old, and since then, even looking at a Joker's picture sends shivers down his spine. One night, Steve was returning home after celebrating the Halloween's night with his friends. He was about to reach his home when he saw a man dressed in the Joker's costume. The Joker stared at Steve and called him. Steve was very excited to see the Joker and quickly went to him. The Joker first shook hands with Steve and then he snapped his fingers through his left ear. Suddenly, a candy appeared in the Joker's hand, which he gave to Steve. Steve was rejoiced seeing the trick. He thanked the Joker and started walking away. However, the Joker stopped him and stared him down with his vicious eyes. Steve could sense the tension around, and seeing his red, scary eyes, he started panicking. The Joker gave him a pack of cards and asked him to choose any one card from it. Steve hesitantly picked a card. It was Jack of Diamonds. Steve put the card back in the deck and shuffled it before handing it back to the Joker. The Joker took out a card from the pack and put it in his own pocket. The Joker snapped again, and the card was now in Steve's pocket. When Steve saw the card, he was scared to death. It was the Joker card, and the Joker's image in the card was shedding blood from his eyes. A startled Steve threw the card away. As he looked up, the Joker was also shedding blood from his eyes. Steve ran away with all his might, but when he looked back, the Joker was standing right behind him. The Joker pulled out a knife from his coat. Steve took the Joker's stick and summoned up all his strength to hit him on the leg. He started running again, but the Joker kept following him with a limp and an evil laughter. Steve couldn't understand what was happening. The faster he ran, the closer the Joker came to him with his knife. As soon as Steve turned the lane towards his house, he saw the same Joker standing in front of him. Steve couldn't believe his eyes. Then he turned back and saw the same Joker coming from behind. Steve was winded out with all the running and started feeling dizzy. Steve lied unconscious, only to wake up in the hospital the next morning. It was a miracle that he survived such a major accident. But that encounter with the Joker scared him for life. Until this day, he has nightmares of that Joker running to him with the knife.
Ghost of a Beautiful Lady. It had been 2 years since Joseph and Christina got married. Coincidentally, they were married on the day of Christmas. Every year, they celebrated their wedding anniversary along with Christmas in a grand fashion, but they had a deep, dark secret that nobody knew about. For the past 2 years, Joseph and Christina invited a lot of people to their home for Christmas. But both the years when people left their home after the party, one of the guests always went missing. He would leave Joseph and Christina's place, but never returned home. The police did a lot of investigation, but didn't find any clue. They had a hunch that Joseph and Christina were somehow linked to the disappearance of the guest, but the police never found any evidence against them. This time when the couple went out for Christmas shopping, the police entered their house quietly and placed cameras there. They had a feeling that they could be committing a mistake and Joseph and Christina might actually be innocent, but they decided it was for the best to clear things out once and for all. Just like every year, one more guest disappeared this year and he wasn't to be found anywhere. The police started accessing the footage from the cameras they placed in their home. They were left stunned by what they saw. They saw Joseph and Christina were taking the guest to their bedroom. Christina's condition looked miserable. It seemed as if a skeleton was wearing her dress. Her body was decaying and her skin was on the verge of rotting completely. They took the guest inside and tied him with a chain. And after seeing this, police officer Victor took his entire team to their home to arrest them. When they reached there, they found that Christina's face was distorted from one side. She had gotten skinnier and her bones seemed like popping out of her muscles. She looked hideous and her condition worsened with every passing moment. When the police arrived, Christina attacked them and Joseph tried to take the guest near the fireplace. As soon as he was about to put the guest on fire, one of the police officers caught him. Christina had already injured a lot of police officers, but her body felt weaker and weaker every second. Finally, with no strength left in her body, Christina fell on the floor and the police arrested both of them. Christina died shortly after. When the police interrogated Joseph, they found that Christina had died long back, but Joseph had saved her body with the help of voodoo and black magic. Every year they sacrificed a human body so that Christina could look like a human being and live normally among everyone else. In reality, she was just a living corpse whose spirit resided in the body only for a year. After sacrificing one human life, she could feed off its spirit for another year. But this time Joseph was unsuccessful in bringing back Christina to life. The police finally brought to an end their demonic ritual and saved that guest's life. If you liked this story, then subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling horror stories.